right, it is just a little afternoon, so we're going to get started here. I want to welcome you all to our 2023 Ask the Alliance webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kate Fritz, and I have the honor of serving as the CEO of the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, and I'm so excited you're joining us for this topic about foraging today. So a few housekeeping items before we get started here. If you wish to have your camera on, you're welcome to do so, but please keep your microphone muted so we don't have any challenges with background noise.
I'll join you for lunch.
And we got a couple there. There we go. So we will also be collecting your questions throughout the presentation. So feel free to include those in the chat at any time during Rob's presentation today. And we'll get them into a sheet here, and I'll share them with Rob at the end, and we'll get those questions answered for you. So before I turn this over to Rob, I want to give you a quick introduction to the Alliance about all the work that we do if you're joining us for the first time. So next slide there, Rob. So the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay was founded in 1971, and we're a regional nonprofit that whose mission is to restore the lands and waters of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Our collaborative and action-oriented approach delivers on-the-ground solutions, technical assistance, and helps to build capacity to achieve healthier lands and waters throughout the entirety of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. For us, it's all about working upstream to help build resilience on our land in order to have long-term improvement to water quality throughout all of our communities. In order to do that, we have 4 offices that are strategically located across the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We're headquartered in Annapolis, Maryland. We have an office in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where Rob is coming to you all from today. We have an office in Washington, D.C. and in Richmond, Virginia. We do our work in 4 main program areas. These include agriculture, forests, green infrastructure, and stewardship and engagement. Each of these programs are designed to bring much needed solutions to the problems that affect the Chesapeake Bay downstream. So if you're interested in learning more about our work, I encourage you to visit our website, which is full of information about our team, about our strategy, and about our projects. If you're interested in getting involved in our work, our volunteer page lists all of our events that allow you to join us in the field to learn more about our work, help plant and maintain trees, clean up your neighborhoods, and much more. You can use the QR code to navigate to our volunteer page there. So for the next few weeks, we only have 3 weeks left of our Ask the Alliance series. I'm so excited that our talented staff are sharing some of their passions and some of their skills and experiences with you all today. So every Thursday from now until August 24th, there's 3 left, like I said, our team of experts at the Alliance will be sharing their passion for topics such as aquatic macroinvertebrates, DIY rain gardens, and turtles of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I can't say enough about how passionate our staff are in general. And through these topics, we're tapping into many of the things that drive us to want to protect our amazing watershed. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Frank, who is going to talk about Foraging 101 today. All yours, Rob.
Thank you very much. Glad to get an opportunity to talk to everyone today. It's an exciting topic for me. And I think a lot of people are curious about it and just looking to get some information. So I'm here to try and inform you. I will be turning my camera off so that I'm not distracting you. So let's get started. So why did I get into foraging to begin with? And why would you want to also get into foraging? I got into because I've always been eating things as I'm hiking around out in the woods, even other places that aren't the woods. And I just wanted to know about more things that I could enjoy in that way. Always want to know, can I eat this? And it's also a great excuse to get out into the wild or into your own landscape, a not so wild place if you don't have a deep woods that you can go into and explore and learn more about the landscape. I've always feel that it connected me to the natural world. And every time I go out, I get more curious about the things I would see, ask more questions, and just want to know more. I'm always finding tons of new things every time I go out, just getting more questions to answer, and just it connects me to the landscape. A number of the things that you're going to find out there aren't things that you're going to find in stores. None of the topics that I'm going to talk today are things that you can regularly find in stores, maybe in a farmer's market or a fancy restaurant, something like that. But they're highly seasonal. They don't transport well. They're hard to cultivate, most of them, some of them impossible. And so they don't make it to the shelves regularly. And beyond that, all this stuff is delicious. Wild berries taste better than store berries. Wild mushrooms taste better than your store-bought button mushrooms. That's just factual. And if you don't try it, I think you're missing out. So where do you go? We can't all go to a mature hemlock pine forest pictured up there. That's somewhere north of the Kittatinny Ridge on a exceptional value trout stream, but you can go out into your... Oh, okay. We can go out into our landscape and find out where things are. So the first thing to do is to get familiar with the landscape around you. In the wild, find the wild foods and where they grow. That means first and foremost to learn your trees. I know I'm biased. I'm on our forest project team. I like trees, but if you don't know the trees and where they grow, you're not going to find the fruits and the mushrooms because they just won't be there. The fruits are only going to grow on the trees that they grow on, and the mushrooms, they only like certain trees too. So without the trees, you don't have the things to eat. The next part that's very important is, once you know where you're going to go, is to be prepared. Like I said, you got to learn your trees, but also be respectful of the landscape. What that means is, if you're going out to find some things that you want to try, do not damage the landscape. The landscape is providing these things to you. It's a natural area. It's an ecosystem. There's a food chain that's involved with it. So be mindful not to destroy that. You know, we're not trying to take every ounce of enjoyment out of the land for ourselves. So, you know, go out there, be prepared to have a good time, but respect the landscape. And, you know, maybe pick up some litter if you're out there too. There are hazards. This also comes under the preparation. Talking about your different plants here. In that picture, you can see some poison ivy that is growing out of an edible mushroom. It grew right around it. That is something that happens. It is not infrequent. You can also see back there, there's a garbage bag, and I think maybe that was one of those applesauce pouches or some fruit snacks. So yeah, you're out in a weird place, different things to know about. So know what poison ivy looks like, know what your stinging nettles look like. If you know what stinging nettles look like and you're so bold, you can eat those, but I won't be covering that today. Itchy plants, mosquitoes, poison hemlock, ticks. Depending on where you are, there might be snakes. That forest that I showed in the first one, the creek that's on is called Rattling Creek. It's called Rattling Creek because there are rattlesnakes. There are deaths associated with that area from rattlesnakes. So if you have rattlesnakes in your area, be mindful of all those things. In addition to that, mushrooms like to go in the rain, grow because of the rain. Water is tied to it. So got to be mindful of floods, flood debris. A lot of these things will grow off of rotten logs. So if you're at a rotten tree, that rotten tree could fall if you're jostling it too much. All sorts of things to be mindful of. Also, wouldn't hurt to bring some sunscreen. Always bring some water with you, and you know, doesn't hurt to tell someone where you are if you're going out by yourself. I like to do it with a friend if I can, but if I can't, it's also a great way to be myself outside. Something I like to do. The first question that people always ask me every time they find out that I know anything about mushrooms, people are very curious about mushrooms, is, can I eat this? The answer is yes, once. You can eat anything once. But to make this point clear, don't eat anything you can't positively ID. You can eat it once, but you might not be around to eat it again because it might have sent you to the hospital or worse. So you're looking at these three pictures here. Got to know what they are. And some of you might, but what we have there on the left is a chanterelle, which is an absolutely delicious mushroom to eat. Probably my favorite one to eat. In the middle is a violet court. You can see that web on there. There's other diagnosis factors on that one to let you know what it is. You don't want to eat that one. That one's going to make you sick. And that one on the end is a lookalike for some other ones. That's a black staining polypore. You can eat that. You might not really enjoy it, but it's not as bad as eating a violet court or some of the other ones. I really want to make this point clear, so we're going to do the next one. 2 white mushrooms. One of them you might find in your yard. One of them you also might find in your yard, depending on what your yard is like, but I normally find them farther in the woods. You got to be able to positively ID the things that you want to eat. 2 white mushrooms, you might put them in the same basket. You might not be paying attention. The one on the left is a meadow mushroom, those pink gills, but there's other things. The one on the right is a destroying angel. The destroying angel will destroy you. That is not something that you will want to eat. It will cause organ failure and possibly worse. So you got to know your ID. Very important. It's not just mushrooms. We're also dealing with plants here. These are 2 nice white flowers here. There's actually a lot of flowers that look just like this on a lot of plants. Maybe you recognize it. One on the left, that's your poison hemlock. The one on your right is Queen Anne's lace or a wild carrot. I've never eaten the wild carrot outside of just curiously biting the root. Tastes a little bit like a dirty carrot, so mission accomplished on that one. I would not eat the poison hemlock. Maybe you've heard what poison hemlock has done. Kills philosophers. It is poisonous. Even touching it is poisonous. So you have to know what those look like before you get involved in, considering consuming any of these things, because there are consequences to it. Even touching the poison hemlock can give you quite a rash. It's an invasive plant. It grows in a lot of places that you'll go to. It grows in a lot of the buffers that we plant. And Queen Anne's lace pops up in other places too. So if you're thinking I'm going out to find Queen Anne's lace, you have to know this one. And again, I'm repeating it. It's the most important thing. It'll give you the appropriate level of caution and scrutiny to be successful and safe and enjoying yourself out there. So now that I've put all this fear into you, let's start off easy with something that you're not going to mess up. This is the pawpaw. This one is a tree that has gotten a lot more popular as of late. Just in my experience, people have been finding out about this. It is, at least in the Pennsylvania area, I think that's largely an East Coast thing too. The largest native fruiting plant that's edible out there in terms of the fruits. It's the Susquehanna banana is what I've heard it called. This is an understory tree. It grows in groves. You'll find a lot of them together. It's not a big tree. It's not something that has a big, thick trunk, has drooping branches. And the reason you might want to forage this one is if you can see that bottom right picture, that fruit does not travel well. Those are ones that are picked fresh and I brought them back. They already are bruising, and they will turn on you if not properly preserved. So this is one of those things where you got to know when they're going to start ripening, and you got to try it because it's not going to end up in your grocery store. Again, you might see it at your farmer's market if they have someone that forages or has their own out there, but due to just the nature of the fruit, it's not going to be very marketable, just because it doesn't transport well. Again, has a thin skin that bruises, turns a little brown after that green. These are the trees in my backyard. I took those two pictures yesterday because I wanted to give you an idea of what it would look right now, at least in the Pennsylvania area. So that's probably about a month out. They'll ripen a little bit soon if the squirrels don't get them. The taste is a cross between a pear and a banana and a mango to me. I've heard it described differently from other people. Custardy, it's fleshy, but just big honking seeds inside there. You know, so they're the size of your thumbnail. So it's sort of like if you're eating a watermelon, you're spitting out the seeds. You can do that with the pawpaw, and you know, go ahead and spit them in your yard. Maybe they'll grow. I eat these fresh. You can preserve the pulp as well. I've had it mixed in with other stuff. People have made pawpaw bread, I've heard. And I just want to give a shameless plug here. We plant pawpaws in our buffers. So if you've ever wanted to see a seedling pawpaw or come out and plant one, please come join us. We have lots of plantings coming up this fall and then this spring, and I know there's pawpaws going in there. If you're not so lucky to be out when the pawpaws are fruiting, here's some other ID features. They got a big leafy looking leaf there. That's a big one. It's not especially exciting like your, say, maple or gum tree leaves or any of your oaks where there's a lot of different veins and things like that. It's just a big long leaf. It's long. Some of them will be the size of your forearm. You see that one. That is an adult size hand. It's mine. I do have adult size hands. I'm lucky. And then the middle one, that flower is a burgundy colored flower. An interesting fact about the pawpaw I'm just going to toss out here is that they are flat. The smell of those is not to attract bees, but to attract beetles and little flies. Those are the pollinators for those. So it's sort of a corpsey smelling flower. I don't get that smell when I smell it, but more eccentric folks than myself, they exist, will tell you to put something rotten next to your pawpaw to encourage pollination. I have them. I have two that flower and they do cross-pollinate. That's the next important thing. You're going to need two different separate trees that flower for pollination. These will form clones. They'll spread by runners. So if you want fruit production, you got to have them pollinated. They take a while to start fruit. These will grow on moist hillsides. I find these grow in tulip poplar, oak, beech, maple, mature forests. So check mature forests near streams and rivers. In Pennsylvania, it fruits in September. The window is about a couple weeks. So you'll start to see them falling off. They should just pop right off into your hand when they're done. They'll blacken quickly on the ground, and deer and things will start to eat them. So if you can get them off the tree, that's better. But off the ground, if you check them and they're still looking pretty good and unbug eaten, then you're good to go. So that's the easy intro one. The next one is another one that's just slightly more difficult. And this is the serviceberry. They have a lot of different names: shadbush, juneberry, amelanchier. There's others. But I call it the serviceberry. That should be one word. But anyway, it's got these berries on there that are like blueberries. You can see on the picture on the right that some are coming in and ripening there. When they get the more purple color, that's when you want to get them. That's when the flavor is going to be best, but you're going to have to compete with birds. I'm talking about the catbirds. I have a catbird in my yard, a couple actually, but one in particular just hangs out in my serviceberry and makes this little meow sound at me every time I walk by. I'm pretty sure we're friends, but he eats most of the serviceberries before I can get to him. I got to jump on him this year, and me and my daughter were able to pick some off. This one grows in the wild in wooded areas. You will see this flower early in the spring. It's got white flowers that are sort of like apple or crab apple flowers, small white flowers. They're flowering before the other trees have leaves on them. Sometimes those flowers are way up high, so it's good if you can find a smaller one, then you can get the berries off of it. Ripens the end of May or early June. Juneberry. It's a good way to remember it. And it can be used in muffins or eaten fresh. Stirred into your oatmeal. It's a good way that way. And if you're foraging in a landscaped area, this one's in my yard. I planted it. Someone gave it to me, about 5 years ago, and I'm growing it there. Just be mindful of any pesticide applications. If you're, in a park or your neighbor's yard or something, they might spray that in June. They do get a couple insects like lace bugs and Japanese beetles feed on them a little bit. So just be mindful of that. In the wooded area, it shouldn't be that big a deal. And it's a great native planting for your own yard if you want to put that in there. Again, it's going to attract a lot of birds. If you want to build biodiversity in an ecosystem in your yard, I would highly recommend this one. And once again, we plant these in our buffers. Come out and see me. Tell me what you thought of my presentation. It'll be great. Getting into mushrooms now. This is the one people are always curious about. People will just give me a verbal description of a mushroom they found and say, hey, what is that? And I eat that. I'm like, it gets really complicated. If you remember earlier, we looked at a violet court. That is a purple mushroom. You think, how many purple mushrooms are there? That first mushroom there, that's a bluet. That's one of my favorites. I love that one. Makes me think I'm in a fairy paradise. That one is a delicious edible. The violet court is not and will make you sick. You need to know the difference between them. I don't know that I can fully express that in this presentation, so we are going to work on some other ones. Just to round out what we have here in the middle is something that is delightfully called the abortive entoloma. That is one type of mushroom that grows in association with another type of mushroom, and they start to argue, and that's the result. Nature is wonderful. On the right is a hedgehog mushroom. It's got little teeth on the bottom. On the bottom is a cauliflower mushroom. In the middle is it's an old Berkeley's polypore, and on the bottom right is it's a painter's squealus with a little frog on top. I don't remember if I put that on there, if the frog was on there, but let's say we found it on there. It makes for a better story. So we're going to start with a foolproof pour here. These are some mushrooms that you should be able to identify. You shouldn't have a problem knowing what they are. That way it keeps you safe as you're just sort of dipping your toes into the foraging world and saying, can I eat this? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what that is. I'm pretty sure I'm not mistaking it for something else. So this is chicken of the woods. This one, it grows on oaks. It is infecting oaks. It'll also grow on downed logs. I've also seen it on honey locust. Bright orange, glows in the forest, and it tastes like boiled chicken when you cook it. It does not have gills. That's an important identifier on this. It is a polypore, so it's just a solid sort of shelf mushroom. It doesn't have a stem like your most mushrooms do. The soft leading edge on that one on the right where it's really new and soft, that one's perfect. You cut off any of the soft leading edges on that. That's the part you want to take. When they get older, they get tough and fibrous. Some people have a sensitivity to this mushroom, and I think that's can be, exacerbated by eating the tougher parts. I was warned by a coworker this morning to say, make sure you tell people that some people have a sensitivity to chicken of the woods. So be mindful of that if you're trying it for the first time. Just try a little bit and make sure you cook it thoroughly. These do grow on the ground off of rotten wood, so you might have to remove some dirt and bugs and other critters from them. You can see on those older ones, they have more dirt on it. On that one on the right, that's new and fresh, that one should be pretty clean. This will grow in some spots for years to come. So if you find it one year, or if you show up and it's past due and it's white and it's bug eaten and falling apart, well, just remember that, and you can come back to that one and get it the next time. The timing for this one is summer through fall, after some significant rain. So you're thinking your thunderstorms that give you like an inch of rain, and then you got to give that one about a week or so to flush in. So if you find a really small one, give it some time. It'll grow in for you. And that's true of almost every mushroom. You find it small, and you know that you can come back and get it. Here I am with my son. He's very excited for that chicken of the woods. We did eat that, despite his demeanor. He's kind of look cool because he is. He's cooler than me, and he loves to eat these mushrooms. He gets very excited about it. The lookalikes for this one: the black staining polypore, Berkeley's polypore. They're both edible. Maybe not to the same degree as the chicken, but you're not going to get yourself in any trouble. Neither of these have gills. Neither does the chicken. Just make sure that if you okay, if you have chicken in the woods, make sure that it does not have gills. If it has gills, that's not the right thing. The next one is the hen of the woods. We have a chicken, we have a hen. The hen of the woods looks more like a hen than the chicken of the woods. You can see that one growing at the bottom of a big lunker red oak there. You'll sometimes, like the chicken, you'll sometimes find these in your urban or backyard landscape as well. These don't require deep woods and a whole habitat, because these are your fungi that are rotting the trees that they're growing on. They're not the beneficial fungi that we've heard of. Again, these grow on oaks. I found them on sycamore, but mainly oaks. They are fluffy looking, gray and brown with white undersides. When they're young, they're a little bit firmer, but they grow out, they sort of leaf out. These show up in the fall after heavy rain. So think about those late tropical depressions that come through, dropping a bunch of rain. You have sort of that cooler temperature. And that's when you go out and find your big old oaks, check them. Just like the other ones, these will show up in successive seasons in the same areas. So remember your spots, go out, find them. And a thing about this one that's worth mentioning is they have a lot of petal-like parts, sort of leafy in a way, and they can trap a lot of leaves and dirt, and they'll grow around twigs like that one, growing around some poison ivy, and you'll get a lot of boost of roosting bugs, snails, and salamanders in there. So take your time cleaning them. You're going to be happier with the results that way. And these mushrooms are very, very big. The chicken's pretty big, so you'll usually get a meal out of that one. These are very big. So some are over 20 pounds. There's that handsome, much younger man in that picture. I believe that mushroom there was 16 pounds. That was the first big one I ever found. That is my face of happiness there. The one on the right is the trunk of a car that is filled with hens. That is from one day in one area. So you're going to get a lot out of this one. It's a good one to find, and it's good. It's a great eating mushroom. I like this one a lot, but maybe they're too big. So here it's completely dominating our porch while I try to figure out what to do with all of these. I ended up giving them to people I know, and something I call the mushroom fairy, where that just shows up on their porch. Very exclusive club. There are some lookalikes for this. The previous mentioned ones, the Berkeley's polypore and the black stain polypore, those kind of look like a hen. Those will probably be the ones that you'll think of more. The cauliflower mushroom looks a little bit like that one. If you find that one's probably even better than the hen. It's pretty rare. That one grows on conifers. It looks like a pile of cooked egg noodles. It's fluffier, smells good. Also has those little nooks and crannies that will hide the bugs. So I keep that in mind. The one I found was very clean, but good luck on that one. If you find one, let me know how it works out for you. The next of the foolproof 4 is, this one's my favorite, the chanterelle. This mushroom in the Pennsylvania area grows in oak and beech woods with good leaf litter. So that's another thing to keep in mind is what does the forest floor look like where you're collecting these? Is there a lot of organic matter for it to eat? Is it moist? Is it a damp place where mushrooms are going to succeed? Does it get sun? Is the temperature right? You develop a sense that I call this place feels shroomy. So that's what has worked out for me. But you know, it's something you develop. These tend to trickle down a hill on the left. You can see a couple of them blending in there. They kind of run in a little line. You think about it just like if you poured water on the hill, where would it run? They seem to be in those areas. They possibly are following runoff channels, and they'll pop out after heavy rains of thunderstorms in mid to late summer. So this is one where if it's been right, you're going to find them now, maybe, depending on what the weather's been like in your area. This one does have lookalikes, so this is one you need to get a good sense of. It has ridges, not gills, and the ridges split and cross. If you look in this one, I tried to zoom in on this one. You can see that those aren't gills like the flappy ones that you're going to see on most of the mushrooms popping up in your yard that you're kicking over. These are ridges, and they cross and break, and there's Y's and X's in them. So a little wiggly. They're firm. They smell good. It's almost a fruity floral smell. It's almost always an egg yolk color. There are some lighter ones, and then there's some smaller ones. That would be the cinnabar chanterelles. Those are small. They're fine to eat too. And these are usually minimally buggy, which is another great thing because some of the other ones you would look for, the bugs are already in them, filled with worms. And most people don't like worms in their food. And I'm showing you this, you get large flushes of them. So I would collect these in buckets. That bucket has some other stuff in there. Some of those are called Old Meadow Woods. They named it after me. That's not true. But they'll have large ones. It's enough that you can cook and eat. There's the mushroom risotto that we make. I shouldn't say we make. I cook the mushrooms. My wife makes the risotto. Wonderful. I love this one. My kids love this one. They ask for more. This one has the lookalikes that you're going to want to be mindful of. The jack-o'-lantern mushroom. This one has gills under it. This is one I saw growing off the stump of an old dwarf Alberta spruce. They don't smell as nice. They're usually in clusters on the ground, but they will grow off of logs. Also, you're not going to see chanterelles growing off of logs. They do not grow off of wood. Again, they have gills in clusters. This will cause gastrointestinal upset and headaches. Translate that how you want. But it's not pleasant. And just a little trivia about this one. They are rotters. They are rotting things. Chanterelles are growing in conjunction with the plants through mycorrhizae. But this one, the gills will glow in the dark. So that's a fun thing to look for. I've never personally seen it, but if you go in a low light condition and you know where there's a jack-o'-lantern, go look for that. That would blow my mind. It's on my bucket list to try out, but don't eat it. Here's another chanterelle look-alike. Some people would say if you get too excited and you see something yellow and you're like, that's one, I'm taking it. This is the fly agaric or Amanita muscaria mushroom. This is the, it's the Mario mushroom, but it has a yellow subvariety. This grows from something that looks like an egg on the ground. It often has a ring around the stalk. It'll have those warts on the top, but they might wash off. And underneath it has something that looks like a skirt. That's a remnant of something that covers the gills as it's growing it. Again, this has gills, not ridges. Do not eat this one. It will also cause your intestinal distress, but also dissociation. That's not a feeling that I want to have. The European subtype is the one that's usually redder. I have seen the red ones in this area, but that's the one that's in every children's book. It's in Mario. It's what was apparently caused the Viking berserker rage. So, maybe if you're a Viking, you're going to storm a village, consider it, but probably not a good idea even if you are a Viking. My daughter is maybe only half Viking. We still kept her away from it. This is the big one. This is the one everyone likes. The morels. Everyone's fighting for them. They want to know where all your spots are. I got a couple. I'm not telling you where they are. That's the common thing. So you got to make good friends with someone. I will tell you, if you're looking for spots, you got to know the trees. Morels traditionally were growing off of elms. Tree history, Dutch elm disease came through and wiped out a large number of the elms. So you lost a lot of these from your urban and suburban landscapes and even from the wooded landscape. There are still elm trees growing out there. So if you find them, that's where you look for your morels. They also grow off of sycamores. They'll grow in stands of your yellow poplars or tulip poplars, tulip tree, whatever you want to call that tree that has the paw-shaped leaves and the pretty flowers. Apple trees, they'll grow in apple orchards or off the apple tree in your yard. Crab apple. I've seen them growing off of, I shouldn't say off of, but around the roots of black cherry. And I found them growing in pines and heavy duff. That one on the left, that is a pine duff morel growing there. There's different species of morel. So you see the one on the far right is a black morel compared to, I believe that one's a yellow morel or a white morel. They got a lot of different things. It's better to break them down by species name than common name, but all of those are edible. That one in the middle is a itty bitty baby. If I could walk back to that one, I'd probably check it in a few days and get a bigger mushroom. Other things that cause these ones to grow are flushes. They respond to forest fire and in burn zones. I don't really have experience with that in this area or in the Midwest, where I have another spot. But some varieties are known to respond to burns. So in the West, if there's a forest fire, people will go out to that forest fire the next year and get the flush. It tends to stimulate them. There's a lot of variety between the species, but here, if it's a wet spring, and you're talking about your mid-April time frame in Pennsylvania, that's when you go out to look for them, cover your territory, look for the trees, and if you're lucky, you'll find one. Then you'll find some more once you get the vision of it, because they blend in pretty well with the ground. Then you start to find more of them. Everyone keeps their spots a secret. Tax day is a good day to go out and look for these instead of doing your taxes. Again, this picture is just to show the size is variable. There's some big ones, there's some small ones. All of these are edible, even though they're weird looking. Older ones tend to get a little funny and weird and fall apart. It's decay, it happens, but the young, fresh ones should be good. The features that you want to remember about these is that they have ridges and pits. They're sort of like a honeycomb, and they're always hollow. You want to know that because of the lookalikes. People talk about it all the time. It's the false morel. That one is wrinkled, not honeycomb. It may be hollow, but all morels are hollow. So if you find something solid, that's not it. I don't find these to particularly look like morels, but again, this is why you gotta learn about it, kind of make sure that you know your ID. These are poisonous. These have caused fatalities. They have a smell to them that's like rocket fuel, because some of the well, I don't know if you smelled rocket fuel, but the compounds in there are the same as in rocket fuel. So it's just got an odd smell to it that's unpleasant compared to morel, in my opinion. Another look-alike is the half-free morel or a verpa mushroom. And this is edible if it's cooked properly. I have eaten these. I'm still here without any ill consequences, but people tend to prefer the main morels. So, just make sure the preparation is good and you should be okay. But just a look-alike to keep in mind. That one has more of that pit and honeycomb thing. That shows you that's more related to the morels. Again, I just want to reiterate that you have to know your IDs on these and be prepared. And if you do that, then you should be okay. And with that, I've given you 6 things to look for. That's your 101. Everything else kind of goes into a more in-depth thing. And, you need a little bit more education to do that, but build your confidence with these and then we'll go on to the next one. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. I learned a lot. Thank you for sharing all of your experience. We did get a couple questions ahead of time, so I'm going to ask those. But if any of our viewers have any questions, whether you're on Facebook or you're here on Zoom with us, if you want to type in questions in the chat, we'll get them to Rob. So the first question here, Rob, can you tell us how fire impacts the growth of fungi?
Yeah, I think I did touch on that a little bit earlier, but we have your large forest fires and burns. This is common, I guess, in the Pacific Northwest. The morels in particular really respond to that. It stimulates the flushes of mushrooms, so it's really highly associated with morels. Most of the places that I have gone aren't burned too often. I've only gone in one time just out of curiosity, and I got skunked that day looking at a burn for morels. But fungi are opportunistic. So if you do have a forest fire and it would have damaged some of those trees, it wouldn't be unlikely to find hen of the woods or chicken of the woods on there, some other ones popping up, taking advantage of the wounds on the trees to, you know, spread into new territory, reproduce.
Great, thanks. Are there any fiddleheads in Maryland?
I am not as familiar with Maryland or fiddleheads. I have found them. I have eaten them prepared from someone else. So I did look into it. The main fiddlehead fern, the one that's most common is the ostrich fern. So that is present in Maryland. And what I read, it was more in the northern areas of Maryland. So it should be there. If you go out in the woods and you can ID an ostrich fern, it'll be there. But I personally don't have any experience with it.
Great. There was a comment on Facebook from our board member, Sean Kimbrough, says he's learned the hard way about those purple mushrooms.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah. I really like the bluets, but the quartz, yeah, that was, yeah. That's, well, it's good to have feedback on that it's true. So
yeah,
use caution.
Use caution, exactly. Rob, are there any edible invasives in Maryland that can be foraged? What are they and how can they be ID'd?
Yes, there are. Again, you know, I'm not too in the Maryland area that often. But I talked to Craig this morning. He's here in the office for our retreats, and yeah, he said, you know, there's garlic mustard, you'll have bamboo, you'll have knotweed popping up. Any of the invasives that you can eat are there. Those are just three that I know people eat. People eat bamboo shoots, they eat knotweed shoots, and garlic mustard. And that's fine. I would encourage you to eat that, but what I would like is to have it handled less of sort of a cultivated food thing and more of, since it is an invasive species, something you can try to get rid of. So if you are taking some of that, take it all, consider eradicating it, and then, you know, feast on your vanquished foe, because we're trying to keep the invasives out. They can be quite problematic. Some of those, especially knotweed, you know, there's lots of things you can eat out there. Barberry, we don't want to see out there. So if you get rid of it, that would make me so happy to do that.
There's a recommendation for garlic mustard pesto in the chat there. That sounds pretty good. We got a couple more questions here. Is there an identification book that you recommend for foraging?
To start, at least for the mushrooms, I would go with Mushrooming Without Fear. It keeps you focused on kind of a narrow path of like what you can get into, because once you get into some of the harder mushrooms, the bolete mushrooms, those are the ones with the pore under surface, that porcini is the one that's most known from those. There are hundreds of those. So many of them look alike. They all have some different identifying features. Some of them are common, some of them are very hard to tell apart. So I would definitely get a good bolete book. I have one. I think it's just boletes in North America, but Mushrooming Without Fear is a great place to start. So look that one up. That's one I'd highly recommend.
Great. We could probably include that in the follow-up email as well, so folks can
sure I can
have that.
I can give a little reading list of the ones on my shelf that's taking up too much of my shelf.
Very good. A couple more questions here, Rob. All of this is from somebody on Zoom. All my serviceberry trees died with from the apple rust fungus. There are so many red cedars around. How do you keep the serviceberry healthy?
Yeah, the cedar apple rust, that can be a problem. I do get a little bit of rust on my serviceberry on the berries. It's a tough one when you have the host pathogen in the landscape. and it's just something that happens. Service berries farther in the woods will do a little bit better because the cedars don't grow there as often. And I think I saw who that was. I've been to that property before. It's a little open. And I'm sorry to hear about the service berries there. There are applications of a fungicide you could do to try to limit that from getting through there, but that's a tough one because the pathogens in the landscape, it's hard to keep it from infecting your plants.
Thanks. Someone asked from Facebook, can you explain your cleaning process, especially for hen of the woods?
Cleaning a hen of the woods, it's time and a commitment. Yeah, if you get one that's a little bit older, it can be filled with dirt and bugs. I pulled salamanders out of them, slugs, worms, all sorts of stuff like that. Try to pick out the large debris. Use a dry brush. They'll sell you mushroom brushes, but I think you can just use a paintbrush. It's the same type of paintbrush that you'd use if you just like you're basting your garlic bread, that sort of a thing. Brush it off with a dry brush carefully. That way you're not damaging and mussing up your mushroom too much. It works for the more delicate ones too. You pull out your large debris, give it a quick rinse because you don't want to waterlog your mushroom, and then try to get the most of it. I've never gotten all of it. There's always a little bit of grit, but maybe I'm a gritty person. So, but yeah, just be careful. It's time consuming.
Very good. We've got two more questions here. Can a tea be made from sassafras?
I have heard that a tea can be made from sassafras. I haven't personally done that. It smells wonderful. I always thought sassafras smells like Fruit Loops to me. If you grind it up so I do that every time I walk past a sassafras tree, just for that smell. But I have heard that you can do that, and I would imagine the process: drying the leaves, and then steeping it. But it's out there.
All right, last question here, Rob. What is a good rule to not over harvest mushrooms so that they return the next year?
This comes up a lot, particularly with morels and porcinis and things like that. Purists, and I follow this same sort of thing, is to not yank it out of the ground. You want to cut it off at the base or twist it, leave some of that stem in the ground. The mushroom is the fruiting body. That is how it spreads. That is how it reproduces. So it's spreading the spores. Ew. But yeah, it'll come out there. I'm a big enough of a nerd that for my morel bag, it's a mesh bag with openings. So I put them in there, or a basket so that there's some air circulation. You can spread the spores that way. Does that work? I don't know, but morels do tend to sometimes show up along trails. So if they're where the people were, maybe that's how it got there. I don't know. But yeah, you don't want to yank it out of the ground. That'll disturb the mycelium. Under the ground, it's a whole web of interconnecting things. It just looks like a weird sort of spider web or root system. It's, if you've seen Avatar, the movie, not the cartoon, the one that with the blue people, that one, they're kind of playing up on that sort of interconnectedness of a fungi mycelial connection. So yeah, for the ones that are growing in the ground for mycelium and off of tree roots and things like that, those are the ones where you don't want to disturb it because they're in the connection one. For your hens and the cauliflower mushroom and the chicken in the woods, those are going to be growing off of a log that is rotten. So they're in the plant tissue. They're actively killing the tree, or the tree is dead. So you're just kind of eating the fruiting body of it. So it's kind of like picking an apple that way. So if you use that as an analogy, you're picking an apple, don't pull off the branch, just pull off the fruit.
Great. Well, thank you, Rob. I think that's all of our questions. We really appreciate your time today. And thanks
Great.
again to everyone for joining us. We'll follow up with the recording of today's session and a couple links that Rob referenced. So check out our website. Please sign up. We've got 3 more of our Ask the Alliances from now until August 24th. So thanks for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Come out to a tree planting.